All right, so the differences between knowing how to invest and having a retirement plan are, they're similar, but they are much different. When you invest money, you learn how to, build your nest egg. And a lot of that can be done through your coworkers, your friends, and you learn to invest somewhat through trial and error. Now, my personal experience is I lost my complete first nest egg, not that anything that I did, but the rules were different back then. And back then, we couldn't take our company matching contributions and retirement bonuses and things like that. And we couldn't self-invest those. Those had to stay in company stock. Well, guess who I worked for? Yeah, a subsidiary of Enron. So I pretty much lost most of my first retirement and had to start over again at 38 years old. Luckily, I ended up with a company that was really good. They had a pension. They had 7% matching 401k. So I was able to start over again. And the rules had changed, so I had to actually learn how to invest my money and how to invest it properly, which was, I don't want to say trial and error, but, I didn't really know how to research. But in that, I took a pretty conservative approach and I stayed very diversified. So my portfolio grew, pretty linear. It was probably a 60-40 mix. But I ended up getting where I needed to be. And I actually hit the number that I looked at when I planned early. But what I didn't realize was that when I started looking at it in my late 50s, that, hey, can I actually retire before my full retirement age of 67? And it wasn't that I didn't enjoy my job. It's just that I had been at that particular place for 24 years and it wasn't Enron. It was a much better company after that. But some health issues started coming up that, I looked at and I said, you know what? For me to continue at this pace and the productivity that the company, I don't want to say demanded, but I was in a pretty high profile position and it demanded a lot. So for me to do that until I was 67, I don't know was going to be, feasible. So I wanted to start looking at retiring early. So I started looking at, okay, what does the retirement plan look like? How can I, move this back a little bit so maybe I can retire in my early 60s? And probably my biggest aha moment was when I figured out, hey, taxes. Taxes are huge. The amount of taxes I was paying while I was working is considerably more than I'm going to pay in retirement. And getting that tax strategy down and figuring out how to pay less taxes is money savings. And when I started figuring that out and figuring out what I actually needed to budget, it started to make sense that I could trim some years off of my retirement plan. That was the first one. The second was realizing that retirement spending is not linear, okay? It's not, I'm going to set a budget of $8,000 a month or $5,000 a month, and that's what I'm going to live on the rest of my life with inflation, added into that. Well, it doesn't go like that. When you first retire, you got a bucket list. You got things you want to do. You're healthier. You want to see things. You want to travel. You want to spend more time with your kids. You want to maybe take a vacation with your kids, with your grandchildren. So it's going to cost more up front when you first retire. So you need to set some of that money aside for that kind of traveling, for those kind of expenses, because you're going to spend more in those go-go years. And then as you get into your slow-go years, which, I'm not putting a sliding ruler on it, but for me, the slow-go is probably going to start around 72 to 75. And those are the years that you're not going to do as much traveling. You're going to try to enjoy more time with your spouse and your family and more locally, should I say. And hopefully most of your expenses are going to be pretty well set by then. So your spending is gonna lower down a little bit, and they call it a smile, where it starts out high and it goes into the slow go, and then it's going to go back up. Because as you get into your no-go years, well, of course, your health is going to start becoming, front and center with where your finances go. Long-term care, doctor's appointments. Even in our early 60s, our health costs have gone up considerably. And the most considerable part of it was health insurance. My company paid for my health insurance. Well, guess what? Now I'm paying for it. So that was a huge part of our budget. And the third part was understanding the budget. Now, when you're working, your working budget and your retirement budget are going to be different. For one thing, you're not going to be saving anymore. So, most of us were saving, 8, 10, 12% of our income for retirement. You're not going to be saving anymore. The second, as I spoke to earlier, is taxes. You're not going to be paying Social Security taxes. You're not going to be paying Medicare taxes. That adds up. Those are all things that you can take out of your budget. The third could be charitable giving. If you were very generous with your charitable giving, you could save some money there, because maybe you no longer don't have the money to give to charity, but you know what? You can give your time. And all those charities, although they need money, they need people to distribute that, whatever products that they have. If it's a homeless shelter or something like that, they need people who can clean, who can help feed these people. There's different ways of being charitable, and now that you have time, you may decide that your labor is what you want to give rather than money. And you're also going to have additional costs. And those costs come in the way of travel. When you first retire, you got your bucket list, you got things you want to do, so you're going to have a higher cost in travel. Possibly you're going to need to buy a new car. You may want to buy that RV or motorhome that you always wanted. So those are the higher costs in retirement. Another big one I mentioned earlier was health insurance. Oh my goodness, health insurance cost is, through the roof. Now, depending on how you posture yourself, you might be able to go to the Affordable Care Act and do it that way. There are some cheaper alternatives that I don't want to get into in this video. Me personally, I went with a savings retirement plan that my company offered for retirees, which really helps out a lot. It's not reasonable by any means, but it does fit into my budget. And the other costs are hobbies. Things that you may not think about, that now that you have the extra time, well, you know what? I want to do more fishing. I want to learn to play golf. Things like those, pickleball, all of those, they're going to cost a little extra money. So those are things that are going to go up in costs in your budget. So understanding your budget in retirement is critical. So if you think you're ready to take that step into building a retirement plan, what I would suggest you do is interview fee-only fiduciary financial advisors. And you can Google it. There'll be some in your area. Doesn't mean you got to turn your nest egg over to them. You don't have to have them invest your money for you, but for a fee, they will go ahead and build you a retirement plan. Now, there's a lot that goes into that, and I have a website, and it's down in the description, where all the tools are free, and it just got a list of vocabulary terms, a checklist of things that you need to figure out what to give your financial advisor, and a budget form where you can kind of figure out a rough budget for yourself. So all those are free on the website, so go ahead and take a look at that. And if you're ready to start building a financial plan, go ahead and interview a couple of these financial advisors and figure out which one's right for you. Okay, so I hope you have a great day and watch this video next.